Hello there. I love it when I get surprised by the technology. Welcome, Eric. You're pointing at something?
Yeah, it shows the recording, but I'm not getting the live box on the FMA.
Yeah, we are.
I got one.
We're live.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is Captain Ron, and with my trusted, able servants. No, not servants. That was demeaning.
Where are your servants?
My able crew members, Eric and Diane. Dieter has the night off. He's in beautiful downtown Santa Fe, or somewhere in Santa Fe, watching a house for somebody. And so he's enjoying some of the Western United States beauty out there. And we're back again for another episode. I've been missing in action pretty much for the last 5 weeks, except for I think I made one of them. But between my travels and last week getting stuck trying to get on an airplane out of LA. But I'm glad to be back tonight. We've got a guest that I'm going to bring on in just a couple of minutes. And we're glad that those of you who showed up are here. We do this every week for people who are afraid to fly, or those who know somebody who's afraid to fly, or just people who like to talk about airplanes in the airline industry. And we're Diane and where you got? I thought you were in Cozumel, Eric.
I am.
Yes.
Are you in Cozumel? That's a dumb question.
Dieter has fused the screen to put us both here to save bandwidth. Clever, huh?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, right. All right. Well, whatever. Okay. So anyway, we got a couple of things in the industry news that we'll talk about down here. But first, I'm going to ask our guest to come on and join us. His name is Joe Monto, and Joe I can't remember how long ago we met, Joe, but welcome to the show, and thanks a lot for showing up here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And what we'd like to do is just, have you share your experiences, both being afraid to fly and all that. And I got a couple of questions that I want to start with. On a level of 1 to 10, with 1 being calm and 10 being really, really nervous, what was the highest level you would get to when you would go to fly?
If there was some room for cushion, I'd say 11.
That's what we like that. All right. And was it before or during the flight, or was it or both? It
was all of the above.
Okay. Okay. And what were the kinds of things that triggered you?
Well, obviously and if I can just back up with the first, I got married in 2000, and my wife and I from Seattle.
Don't say your wife triggered you. We'll have to end the interview.
She's right around the corner too. So
that's a good place. Let's just go back to a little bit of history with and bring us up to date. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give a little context. But so we got married, and from Seattle we flew to Anaheim, going to Disneyland for our honeymoon. And, my wife had no idea that I was a terrified flyer until we were on the plane, and I was white knuckled and very unsociable.
Oh, no.
And that's a great place. Did she like try to figure out what was going on? Did she try to help you, comfort you, or what was it like for her?
Yeah, I think, knowing her like I do, I mean, her compassion and really just concern, trying to distract me, trying to keep things light. And I just wasn't having it. I was really consumed with fear and just, again.
Yeah.
Really.
And not to put you on the spot, but did you, maybe like bark at her a little bit, or just kind of push her away, or
Yeah, it was more, hey, honey, don't talk to me right now.
Right. And that's what I want to get into, because when I fly with people, and I just worked with a couple or a lady over in Copenhagen when I was over in Europe, and I was sitting down there talking to her and her husband, and who've become really good friends now, and we were talking about this, and he's a really nice guy. Of course, he wants to help the wife, you know, because she's just freaking out on the airplane and everything. It doesn't take but a couple of seconds, and you know, and she's like, get away from me, you know. And so, and I found that over the years, it's not just the problem with the person being afraid. It's just that you can't, there's nothing you can do to help them. And so you got people who are, you know, the ones that people that love them and they're trying to help them and all that, and then they get their head bitten off, and now it's like, well, okay for you then, you know. Anyway,
It's like, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Don't
how?
touch-
So was it? You got through the flight, obviously, and you know, did you explain to her then? Did you come clean at the end of that, or what?
Oh, she had me pegged, you know, at that moment, and I don't remember the flight home. I remember the flight there, but and it was at that point. That was my last time in an airplane.
And how long ago was that?
That was 2000. Up until the shutdown, you know, 2020.
Yeah. Okay. But you're still married, right?
Still married, and
Okay,
she's
that's good news.
putting up with my shenanigans.
Yeah. And had you, and leading up to that, had you always been afraid to fly, or was that, did you have a bad experience, or what triggered it?
No, and that's just the weird. Okay, so kind of backing up even before then, I think it was my adolescence. You know, I had a nightmare about being on a plane and you know, it being quiet, and then a loud explosion, and the plane going down, and I woke up in a terror and was just, you know, I guess, you know, and fearful of flying since then. And never really, you know, talked with anybody about it and unpacked it or anything like that.
Yeah. Have you had any thoughts about writing it down and submitting it as a script?
Yeah.
It's got to be a good movie.
Being a musician and, you know, you watching La Bamba, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Valid.
he had that,
Richie
he had
Valens.
that dream.
Yeah. Okay. I got a segue there. This is the 50th anniversary of the song American Pie, written by Don McLean. And if you haven't seen it, there was a great documentary on that. It was that he wrote that song in response to the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, and who was the third one? Come on, Diane, that's our era.
We're the only ones that remember that.
Buddy Holly.
Anyway,
Buddy Holly.
up in a cornfield in Iowa. And Eric probably, I don't know if you know where that is, but they got a monument in the middle of the field now to this thing. And
It crosses up, and the farmer always leaves a pathway plowed.
Yes.
For people that want to walk out there. My brother actually did it this year for the first time after he and I have been by that more than 1,000 times.
Yeah.
He walked out there and he says it's pretty cool. And under the Small World department, one of my lifetime best friends' fathers owns the fixed base operator that owned that airplane, and the pilot that crashed, Ross Peterson. That was my friend's dad's pilot in his FBO and his Bonanza.
Yeah. And he was
We all remember that when that happened.
Yeah, that was, it was I think it was the 3rd of March or something like that. It was 1959, I believe. But I was in the 7th grade, I think, at that. But anyway, back to you. Okay. And so it's things like that trigger people, you know, and we remember those things and all that. So it'd been a long time since you flew. What did you try anything over that, you know, before you met us or anything?
So in 2020, so you know, I'm a pastor at a church, and over, you know, in our church, our pastor, we go on a tour to Israel every other year.
Oh, cool.
And so, and I never shared this with, you know, any of the staff at the church, you know, and I've been there 6 years now. And you know, so I think when I first came on staff 6 years ago, I was invited to go to Israel. And in my mind, I'm going, there's just no way. Although, you know, there's you know, my heartstrings are there. My mother's side of the family is Jewish, and so that's you know, a dream of mine. However, my fears kind of overruled that. And so I just kind of wrote it off with, I got young kids, probably not going to work out. And then 2 years later, an invite, I don't think I'm up for it. Up until 2019 is when my boss, my pastor said, "Hey, you're going on this trip." And I was like, okay.
And that's part of the higher calling, right? You can't turn that down.
So I leveled with him at that point and said, "Hey, I can't fly. I'm petrified."
Yeah.
And when I lived in Seattle, and this is here in Vegas, I moved, like I said, 6 years ago. When I lived in Seattle, I did share with a friend of mine who's a pilot for Alaska Airlines, and he's a flight simulator trainer now. He lives in Florida, but I shared with him years ago about this fear, and he shared with me about a fear flying school in the Bay Area and told me about it. So in 2019, when I had that conversation with my boss, my pastor, and he was pretty determined to get me on that trip, at that point I said, "Hey, would you be open to me, checking out this school and or the class rather?" And the class was 2 consecutive weekends, and
taught by a lady or a couple ladies or a lady, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And and at this point, I hadn't heard of Captain Ron, so in that conversation, and he was open to me checking it out, and I booked the class, and it was at that point actually after I booked the class that I was still oh my goodness, I'm gonna I'm apprehensive towards I'm facing my fears and with a bunch of people I don't know, and so I did some research online, and I stumbled across the FearlessFlight.com site, and ironically, I downloaded all of your resources, and then and it was a good class. I mean, it was in depth. They had pilots that were sharing with the class, maintenance people.
And you're talking about the San Francisco class now. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And air traffic controllers, flight attendants, and a lot of really good info. But I was in the back, behind the scenes, taking what they were sharing, but also really reading and listening to the harmonizer. And I remember that the second weekend we flew from Frisco to Portland, and that was the kind of the graduating day.
Yeah.
You fly, you have lunch together as the class in Portland, and then you fly back.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up early that morning, going, okay, this is it, and listening at about 4 a.m, listening to the harmonizer over and over again. And I got to tell you, I mean, again, my fear was off the charts. When we got on that plane, there was 3 of the gals in my class sitting behind me, and I heard them say, "Pastor Joe," and I turned around and they said, "Can you pray for us right now?" And I'll tell you,
is that called double dipping when you're a student and a pastor?
No, I'm busy. Leave me alone.
I'm busy.
I got to tell you, I turned around and I said, "Absolutely, guys." And it was at that moment I'm like, with the plane took off, I'm comforting my class, and I'm like, "Guys, if I can do this, you can do this." And I'm taking selfies. I'm like, why did I wait 20 years for this? Or avoid this for 20 years?
Yeah. And people find it hard to believe that is one of the most often uttered phrases is, "Why did I wait this long?" It's just like that. So anyway, we're glad. I'm glad to meet you. I know we've talked several times. How many? I mean, it's been a while since you and I first met, I think, and talked. And we've been trying to get you on the show, and I know you've been busy and all that. But I'm really grateful for you coming on here tonight. So you use the harmonizer even before, I mean, it's part of that class there. So tell people out there what that is to you, or what does it mean to you, or how does it help you? What's it all about? Eric, because Eric doesn't use it at all.
I'm up to 2.5 seconds, but I'm building resistance.
And I have.
And I got to tell you, I do music for a living at the church, and I'm a Seattle rocker by heart.
Yeah.
That song, just stand alone. That song, before and at the end and the beginning, I'm like, this is a rocking tune.
Yeah.
And that song actually is played in my head over and over again.
Yeah.
When the harmonizer was off, I flew to Seattle last week with my wife and my daughter for 4 days, and the moments on the plane when that I wasn't listening to the harmonizer or watching it, that song was playing in my head. There they are.
What a beautiful picture.
Yeah, was that the first grandchild?
No, I have a 4-year-old. She's got a 4-year-old boy.
Okay.
So then,
but a good reason to go to Seattle.
Oh man, it was awesome. So, to answer your question, the harmonizer to me. So when I'm in that mode of panic, I got these thoughts that are just, all consuming, and there's, it's just, there's no interruption.
Right.
That harmonizer is an interruption. It's a huge interruption to those thoughts.
Yeah.
And you're still wrestling, with man, I got to revert back to those thoughts.
Yeah.
But the harmonizer's that continual reaffirmation of no, you're not. Yeah.
I call it I mean, every culture has some form of mindfulness, and in a lot of, American culture is prayer. A lot of religious traditions are prayer. And so, and that's in my traditions, but I got the idea, and I thought, people, when we think of normal tradition and prayer, even, it's like quieting your mind, but that's almost impossible for a person at that level of anxiety. Your mind is screaming at you. It's like, what are you doing? And so I got the idea listening to another program like that. And it just occurred to me that if I could do a dynamic meditation, that's my label, where if in other words, if you can't beat them, join them. Say, okay, you want to yell at me? I got something to yell at you. And then, and then you just dump it in the mix. And it truly, you use the word distraction. And that was my first thought. I said, if people can't get that voice to shut up or to override it, maybe we can just overload it and immerse them in other sound. And that seems to be, when it works for people, it works really well. And it works for a majority of the people out there. And I've had people tell me they haven't done anything, any kind of learning, and they just, back in the old days when it came on a CD, they'd put it in their CD player. And I had a lady in Indianapolis once, she bought it in a gift shop when it was a hard copy purchase item. And she wrote me and she said, man, I got that thing on. She was in Indianapolis on a business trip, and she was going back to the East Coast somewhere, and she said it was totally amazing, and it just helped interrupt and disrupt and distract her thinking so that she could not have that screaming at her. So,
well, Ron, throw yourself that extra bone on marketing the harmonizer. As much as I'm not a fan, a lot of the Fearful Flyers have worn that to the dentist's office if that's not their favorite thing. My dentist has TV on the ceiling, and we always get to watch The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, which makes the 15-year-old techs very unhappy. But if you don't have roof TV, then people have worn the harmonizer at the dentist and distracted themselves enough where they can go through the deal and it's all good. I mean, it's that distracting.
Whatever it is.
And we talk about the Fearless Flight method. It's educating people, and you did that part with the lady and her program in San Francisco. And I always encourage people to learn more, because when you know more, you do better typically. But that's more of a long-term thing, and it helps you get rid of some of the myths that you might have, or some of the stories going around. The thing that'll get people on the airplane the soonest is distracting and disrupting their thinking, because that's what it is. Attention, once your attention gets hijacked, and it's going to get hijacked, I don't care who you are and how long you've worked on it, you're going to lose control of your attention. I mean, I could be sitting here, if somebody sneaks up behind me and goes boo, I'm going to lose my attention in the moment, because until I've satisfied that part of my brain that says you're safe, Ron, you don't have to worry about it. But when it goes, what we try to do is distract you from that with the harmonizer, and in the long term, try to teach you ways to bring it back under your control. And I tell people, you don't have to listen to it every day for the rest of your life, but for right now, if you get within 3 to 4 weeks of your flight and you're having issues with it, you want to listen to it as much as you can at night, all the way through 32 minutes at night, in the morning if you can. And the most important thing I've found is during the day, if you're running around and all of a sudden you hear your attention getting distracted or getting hijacked, thinking about the flight coming up, listen to it then if you can, but you won't have to listen to the whole thing, just 4 or 5 minutes usually, until you get your attention back. And then that will, then you'll be on track again. And then when it goes away again, you do the same thing. So anyway.
I had, a couple of trips ago, I was the aft flight attendant, and I was in my jump seat. We were doing our takeoff roll, and the 2 aisle seats right by me, because of my little plane, those seats are right by my jump seat. I had a young boy and his dad, and the young boy was probably 9-10 years old, and he was obviously very nervous. I mean, the dad had reached across the aisle to hold his hand. And as we were starting, the young boy just folded over and started crying. And of course, because Ron, you and I've been doing this with you for about 7 years, I started saying, well, let's see, tell me, what grade are you in school? And I started just distracting him, asking him questions, and he stopped crying. And he turned around, started answering me. Well, he was in this grade, and he was studying this was his favorite subject, and all these kinds of things. And it was like, it was a complete transformation when he was no longer thinking about that. And then going to the education part, I said, okay, now after a little bit, we're going to hear kind of a thunking sound. That's the gear coming up into the airplane. That's when the wheels come up. Oh, okay, that's fine. Then he wasn't nervous about that. And the rest of the flight was pretty non-eventful.
Because it's a situation.
He had stopped thinking about that and being
exactly.
And a completely different path. It was really successful.
Yeah, that was really astute on your part, Diane, because if you can give somebody an alternative, and distraction isn't the long-term goal, because you want to be able to get back under control where we can regulate your body up and down. Right. But in that moment, it's really helpful. And that's where education comes in. Like when Diane was telling him about some other parts of the plane stuff. Now you're taking that anticipatory anxiety and you're feeding it with things. Now you're looking for what's going to happen on the airplane. Right. And that's where education comes in. If I don't know what's happening on takeoff and I get nervous on takeoff, now telling somebody you're going to notice this, you're going to notice a thump when we raise the landing gear, you're going to notice the leading edge devices and all that kind of thing. Right. That helps. So when you fly now, Joe, what do you have kind of a process when you get close to the flight, or how did you prepare for Seattle?
Yeah. So, I would say,
and if you can, we want to see your handsome face there. If you can, would you be able, again, I'm in Vegas and the sun, it's monsoon season, but the sun just came from under the clouds. So I'm going to go shut the blinds. Give me. Okay. And we'll make sure to mention that you're not incarcerated right now, because the bars are going the wrong way.
A jail vibe going.
He's got that FBI informant look going on.
Yeah, right. That's
all right. Let's try this again.
All right. Oh, much better. All right. So we're talking about getting prepared. How did you prepare for Seattle?
Yeah, I would say about a week and a half before the flight. I at night, in the morning, was listening to the harmonizer. I watched, I rewatched. You did a video on turbulence. and I watched that, just kind of that reminder that, it's going to happen. There's no way of avoiding it. And I think that's kind of a misperception too, as it's going to be a complete, straight, smooth, flight, and you're going to have those bumps, and that's okay.
Turbulence is more the rule than the exception, and occasionally you do get lucky and you don't have a single bump in it, but it's more likely that's going to happen. And again, it sounds like our goal is to not get people to hope for a smooth flight, to hope that everything will go smoothly. It's to be able to add to your resilience so that you can go up and down, which is really what life is all about. And I'm sure that's what you do in your ministry. Your work is largely working with people that are having ups and downs in life, and you certainly don't tell them, well, do this or eat this or whatever, and your life will be carefree, right? It's like, what are you going to do? Whether it's faith or whether it's some sort of plan you're working under, you got to be able to move with life, because it's going to throw you curves. So
and education part of why is it bouncy? Why are we having a little bit of bounce? Well, it's hot air currents, or it's this or that or the other thing. And once people, one of the things I try to do as flight attendant, and when I have passengers who were obviously concerned about that or a little bit anxious about it, and I use the analogy of a speed bump, because Ron, you were the one who taught me that. And I use that all the time when I have passengers who are concerned. I said, well, okay, so you're going over a speed bump and it's 15 miles an hour. It's no big deal, right? Yeah. So you're going over a speed bump at 65. What's going to happen? Oh my God, you're going to wind up being airborne. Except we're going over the same equivalent kind of speed bumps at about 500 miles an hour. And it's going to be a little bumpy, but it's okay. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that education that you always taught me was and still is a huge tool for me to deal with my passengers on the plane.
Yeah. And as you point out, when I fly with somebody in a one-to-one coaching thing, the last thing I want to talk about on the flight is airplanes and flying, because they know why I'm with them, so that's pretty obvious, but I do essentially that. And essentially what you've learned to do on your own, Joe, is as Diane said, you've learned to think about other things, and you've changed the way you thought. And that's where satisfaction comes from. So any words of wisdom that, to impart to people out there who may be, trying to figure out what to do next?
Absolutely. I would say, you can't reason with your fears, when you're in the midst of that continual participatory anxiety of, I'm just gonna, somehow get through this without any resources. You absolutely need resources that, like what you've offered. And I would say, for people that are watching or listening, absolutely, these are vital resources where you're learning the dynamics of flying and what puts the plane in the air. Your harmonizer is walking you through how it is that you're ending up in the air, and then what to expect when you're in the air. And then there's even a part in the harmonizer where you say, I'm sick and tired of,
Right.
And that's a part that I really, look forward to, because that's speaking for me. I am sick and tired of living in this state of avoidance and fear. I got to hit it head on. And it doesn't feel good initially to hit it head on. It's hard.
It is.
Really,
it is. Yeah.
But if I can do it, you can do it.
Right. And it's so much better coming from you, because when anybody hears Eric or Diane or Dieter and I talk about it, it's like, well, you don't really know what it is. And it's true. We don't know what it is for you or for people out there, but it does help to have people like you come on the show and talk about it, because you have a lot more credibility than we do. And I really want to thank you for coming on tonight.
If I can share one quick story.
Absolutely.
And it happened to me the first weekend of this class. I was hearing all weekend, and you know the statistics more than me, but on driving and losing your life versus flying and losing your life.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing that all week, the first weekend, you know, you're more likely to die in a car accident. And I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
No,
But so the first weekend I actually drove to San Francisco from Las Vegas because I was like, okay, you know, I hadn't dealt with, you know, that. And so I drove and as I'm at the class, it was all day Saturday and then Sunday into the evening. And then I drove home back to Vegas, you know, at 5 p.m., you know, in the Bay Area. So I'm driving through, you know, the desert in the middle of the night, talking to my wife on the phone. You know, it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm in pitch black in the desert.
right.
And I'm driving, you know, doing 70, 75, and something caught my vision. It was a miracle, but I came upon it 70 miles per hour, an overturned diesel truck that's blocking all the lanes.
Wow.
And it's black. The lights on this diesel truck, it just happened. It did not, you know, there were no lights. And I just happened to see, I don't know if it was skid marks or, you know, marks in the road. And I ended up jerking the wheel so fast. I think I went through in the center divider, which was dirt. And somehow I miraculously ended up on the other side of this truck. You know, my wife's like, what just happened? I said, hold on a second.
I'm not sure what happened.
And I mean, I was this close to losing my life. And it was at that moment, I'm like, you know,
we're serious.
You guys are dead serious about this.
That's another plus besides our 201 classes where we're on the internet. We have podcasts. We have all this give and take and questions. We get to know everybody much better, but it's not an all weekend high pressure real estate seminar where we send people home tired. That's another huge plus of that, where people aren't going home like that and emotionally and mentally drained after the class. You're in a mental bad way or kind of let down after that. And so that was very fortunate.
Wow.
It reminds me of a story of another one of our graduates, Tom. And Tom's the one that says sooner or later you gotta just get on the doggone plane, you know, because that's the only place. But Tom had been working through it, and he would you know have highs and lows and stuff. And he spent a lot of time going to other cities because of his job. He had to testify in court cases a lot. And on this particular weekend, he was going to, I believe, Shreveport, Louisiana. And he thought, well, you know, and he had it down to the minute when he would have to get in the car if he was going to make it in his car versus any time after that, he had to fly. So in this particular day, he's watching his watch and he said, you know, I got this buddy in El Paso, be just kind of like a nice, easy drive. So he sets out to drive instead of flying. And he gets to El Paso, visits with his friend, they go out to eat. He comes back and he's in the parking lot behind the hotel. Two guys come up with chrome-plated revolvers and robbed him.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And they start to walk away after they've said, you know, they've been demanding, give me everything and all that. And they start to walk away, and then they turn and come back, which is kind of a tactic. And they say, okay, what are you holding out on me? You know? And it's at that point that, you know, as a trained law enforcement guy, he knows, you know, they said, okay, get in the car. And he said, you know, if you get in the car, you're probably never going to be seen again. But he was able to diplomatically convince them that he gave him everything, showed him his wallet and stuff. So to this day, he says, if I had been in an airplane that weekend, I wouldn't have got robbed in El Paso. And so you know, it's just those are the things that happen in life. And your story and his story are really examples of, you know, it is dangerous down here sometimes on the road. And so.
So when I'm the aft flight attendant, of course, when we land and everybody's deplaning, I'm up in the back still, out of my jump seat. And as people are little by little leaving, I'm usually saying, good night, everybody, or whatever. Good night. I say, just, drive carefully. I said, you are now embarking on the most dangerous part of your trip. And they kind of look at me and said, trust me. I said, you're much safer with me at 35,000 feet going 500 miles an hour than you are on the freeway. And
For sure.
they think, oh, actually, I think I am. I'm going, yeah, you're much safer with us anyway. But
well, thanks again, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on here and taking time to do it. It's been wonderful talking to you over the years, and I wanted to make a statement because you've been active on our Facebook pages as well. I know I've seen posts that you make in there, and I wanted to thank you for that. And just wanted to call that out to everybody's attention. Can you see that the hash marks there, guys?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. This came in from I noticed Jim Duke, who's an avid follower of ours, and he pointed out, and we'll just give credit to the ground crew. He says, we don't realize how some of the things that go on behind the scenes, and he talked about this particular picture he took out the window. These are all hash marks for where the marshaller should stop the airplane. You can see the designations down there. This is a 73-8, it's probably an 800. And MD-80 and 780, I don't know, maybe a 787, 800. Anyway, and Eric and I were talking about that at the beginning. We take for granted sometimes that, some of the roles that people do down there. But this is one of the this is a comment that Jim made. And so I want to thank you, Joe, and Jim, and everybody who participates, because the third thing on our tier is we got education, we got the flight harmonizer and distracting people, but the last one is the sense of community, because like you found out with your wife, nobody knows like another fearful flyer what you're going through. And again, so thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks to Diane. Thanks to Eric. Any closing words or any comments out there that we should acknowledge?
No, actually, it's kind of funny. We're side-eyeing the chat coming in, and Jim is certainly a Platinum Club participant and feeds us material like that. But right now, he's on a fascinating cruise, and all of our birds of a feather are communicating with Jim about the cruise, and nobody's asking a question about any kind of flying. So there hasn't been any commentary, nothing to do with airplanes.
Flying. It's all cruise related.
Yeah.
How dare they? How dare they?
I don't think anything is like aviation to be a means to an end. Because, everything from learning how to fly, they didn't want me to learn how to fly so much as they wanted me to be able to do something useful with an airplane, because that's what it's all about. So again, thanks, Diane. Thanks, Eric. And thanks, Joe, for being with us. And I just wish you the best, and keep participating with us anytime you get a chance. Okay.
I'm flying to Israel in March.
All right. I just came back from there in July. So cool.
Okay.
You're gonna have it, and I don't know how you're getting there, but if you can get somebody to pony up for a premium seat, do it. Oh my gosh, that's the only way to go. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see all of you back next week for another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.